My son called. Don't come. My wife doesn't want you at the party. And I had just recently given them a new apartment. I replied, whatever you say. That night, I canceled all the automatic transfers and payments. In the morning, they started calling me in a panic, but I had already made up my mind. No one expected what happened next. Margaret Thompson, a widow, knew the value of life and death. After losing her husband too soon, she dedicated herself completely to her son, Daniel. She poured into him not just her motherly love, but all her strength, time, and of course, money. She wanted him to have everything she might have missed out on when she was young. Daniel grew up surrounded by care, sometimes even excessive care, but Margaret saw nothing wrong with that. She just wanted to protect him from any possible hardship. When Daniel brought home Rachel, a young and ambitious woman, Margaret was thrilled at first. Finally, her son would have a family, someone to lean on. She sincerely wanted to help them build their life together, so without thinking twice, she offered her help. And her help was substantial. Margaret sold her beloved summer cottage, where she and her husband had spent every summer, and gave half the money to Daniel and Rachel for a down payment on an apartment. The apartment was registered in Daniel's name. It was simpler legally, and Margaret didn't see any problem with it. The most important thing was for them to have their own place. But her help didn't stop there. Margaret kept supporting her son's family, paying their utility bills and the kindergarten fees for her beloved grandson, Alexander. She did it happily, believing she was making her children's lives easier. Daniel seemed to accept this help as a given. He was used to his mom always being there, always backing him up. For him, it was normal, just part of life. Rachel, on the other hand, felt awkward at first about her mother-in-law's generosity. It seemed to her that Margaret was interfering too much in their lives, controlling their every step. She appreciated the help, but she also dreamed of having more independence, of being able to make decisions on her own. Over time, though, Rachel got used to Margaret's financial support. She thought to herself, if there's an opportunity to make life easier, why not take it? Even though the apartment was under Daniel's name, it had been paid for with Margaret's money, including the funds from selling that very summer cottage where so many happy years had been spent. That cottage wasn't just a vacation spot for Margaret, it was a symbol of her family, her story. She and her husband had planted flowers there, grilled barbecue, celebrated holidays. Selling it brought her a quiet sadness, but she comforted herself with the thought that she was doing it for her children's future, for their well-being. Rachel, meanwhile, began to express a stronger desire to live on their own, independently. She gently but persistently hinted that they needed more personal space, less oversight from Margaret. Phrases like "we want to be independent" and "we need to learn to handle things on our own" started coming up more and more often. She said this to Daniel, but of course, Margaret heard everything. Margaret tried not to interfere or impose her opinions. She rarely visited, mostly coming by to play with her grandson or bring them groceries. She helped quietly, unobtrusively, staying out of their business, never arguing or criticizing. She understood that newlyweds needed time to adjust to each other, to learn to live together. And she sincerely hoped her help wouldn't be seen as an intrusion on their independence. She watched from the sidelines, trying not to get involved, but her heart still ached. She saw Daniel gradually turning into an immature dependent, used to having his problems solved for him. She saw Rachel, despite all her ambitions, increasingly rely on her support, losing her drive for independence. Sometimes Margaret wondered if she was making a mistake, if her excessive care was actually harming her son and his family. But she couldn't stop. Her maternal instinct always won, and she kept helping them, even when she knew it wasn't right. She was afraid that if she stopped, they wouldn't cope, that their family would fall apart. Rachel, for her part, grew more and more distant from Margaret. She didn't like that her mother-in-law was always around, always knowing what they ate, what they wore, where they went. She wanted to make her own decisions and run her own life. She dreamed of Margaret stopping her interference so they could live as they saw fit. She understood that Margaret meant well, that she truly wanted to help. But to Rachel, the help felt too intrusive, too burdensome. She wanted to prove that she could take care of herself, that she was capable of building her own life independently. Deep down, Margaret felt hurt. It pained her to realize that her help wasn't appreciated, that it was taken for granted. She gave her children everything she had, and in return, she received only complaints and dissatisfaction. All she wanted was for them to simply say thank you, to acknowledge that she was doing everything she could for them. Despite all this, Margaret kept helping Daniel and Rachel. She couldn't do otherwise. She was a mother, and her heart broke for her children. She believed that someday they would understand how much she had done for them, that they would appreciate her care and love. In the evenings, sitting alone in her apartment, Margaret often thought back to her life with her husband. They had started from nothing, and it had been hard. But they were always together, always supporting each other. They overcame difficulties side by side and shared their joys. She hoped Daniel and Rachel would build a relationship just as strong and happy. She believed in them, believed in their love. And she was willing to wait as long as it took for them to realize how much she meant to them. She knew that sooner or later they would appreciate her care and love. And then everything would fall into place, and their family would be happy again. But for now, all she could do was wait and hope. And keep helping them, helping, as long as she had the strength and means. She was a mother, and that was her purpose. 2 days before her grandson Alexander's birthday, Margaret was looking forward to it. She had already bought him an educational building set he'd been dreaming of. She even baked her signature apple pie, remembering how Alexander loved it with milk. Late in the evening, her phone rang. Daniel's number lit up on the screen. Margaret smiled, expecting a pleasant conversation about the upcoming party. "Hi, Mom," Daniel said, his voice sounding strained. "Hello, Daniel. How are you all doing? Alexander must be so excited for his birthday, isn't he?" "Yeah, he is," Daniel hesitated. "Mom, listen. Rachel wanted to ask you, well, she'd prefer if you didn't come to the birthday party." Margaret froze. Her son's words felt like a punch to the gut. Her chest went cold, and only one thought echoed in her mind: why? "Not come," she repeated, trying to keep her voice calm. "Yeah, Mom. Rachel says, well, you know, there would be too much attention on you, and this is Alexander's day. She wants it to be just family, no extra guests." Margaret stayed silent. "I understand," she finally said quietly, hiding her disappointment and pain. "You're not mad, are you, Mom?" Daniel's voice carried a hint of guilt. "No, Daniel, of course not. It's your celebration. Do whatever you think is best." "Thanks, Mom. We love you." "I love you too," Margaret replied and hung up. That night, she barely slept. Memories flashed through her mind. All those sleepless nights when Daniel was sick. Working 2 jobs just to give him the best. Selling her summer cottage to help them with their mortgage. And all of it for what? To be told she wasn't welcome at her own grandson's birthday party? But the hurt quickly turned into resolve. She realized she couldn't keep living like this. She had given too much and got nothing back but entitlement and quiet resentment. It was time to make a change. That very night, Margaret made a decision that turned their whole family's life upside down. She opened her laptop and logged into her online banking. Her fingers trembled as she canceled all the automatic transfers, payments for the kindergarten, utility bills, groceries ordered on her card. She removed her card from the shared family budget that they'd been using so conveniently without even asking her. She knew it was harsh. But she saw no other way. She needed them to understand that money didn't grow on trees, that everything comes with a cost, that they had to learn to take responsibility for their own lives. When she was done, Margaret closed her laptop and lay down in bed. Her heart felt heavy and anxious. She knew a storm was coming. But she was ready. From that moment, Margaret went silent. No reproaches, no requests, no complaints. Complete silence. She stopped calling them, stopped offering help, stopped checking in. She just waited. She knew they wouldn't last long without her support. She knew they would call, and she was ready for that conversation. The next morning, Margaret woke up feeling empty. She made herself some coffee and sat by the window, watching the city wake up. Daniel's words still echoed in her mind, "Rachel wants you not to come." She remembered her own mother. How she had always been there, helping with Daniel when Margaret was in college. She had always been so grateful for everything her mother did for her. Why didn't Daniel and Rachel feel the same? Margaret sighed. She knew it wasn't just about the money. It was about respect, about gratitude. And that was something she hadn't seen from them. At first, there was confusion. The internet stopped working. Rachel saw a message pop up on her phone about an unpaid bill. Used to always having internet, she thought it was some kind of mistake. She checked the balance, zero. She tried restarting the router, but nothing worked. Then she remembered Margaret always paid it before it was due. She probably just forgot, Rachel thought, brushing off the growing unease. Then a notice came from the kindergarten, "Dear parents, please settle your outstanding balance for your child's attendance." The amount was significant. Rachel swallowed hard. Margaret always paid the kindergarten fees too. Rachel had never even thought about it, taking it for granted. But this bill felt like a bucket of cold water, snapping her back to reality. More bills piled up in the mailbox, like ominous signs of an approaching storm. Utilities, mortgage payments, everything needed money they suddenly didn't have. Daniel was busy with a new project he had invested all his savings in, hoping for profits soon. But for now, it wasn't bringing in anything, and the bills kept coming. The call started. First, Daniel called. Polite, cautious. "Hi, Mom. Listen, there's been a bit of an issue with the payments. The internet's off, the kindergarten's asking for money. Do you know what's going on? Maybe there's a mistake with the bank." Margaret replied calmly, her voice even, without a hint of regret or reproach. "There's no mistake, Daniel. I won't be paying your bills anymore." Daniel's voice shifted from confusion to irritation. "What do you mean you won't? Mom, how are we supposed to live now? You know we have a mortgage, Alexander. You're adults, Daniel. You decided you wanted to live on your own. Now live. Solve your problems yourselves." Daniel tried to guilt trip her, reminded her of her grandson, of everything she had done for them. But Margaret stayed firm. "I've done everything I could for you. Now it's your turn." Then Rachel called. Her tone was more forceful, demanding. "Margaret, what's going on? Why did you stop paying? You know we're having a tough time right now." Margaret repeated herself. "Rachel, you wanted independence. Now you have it." Rachel tried to appeal to their past relationship, to how Margaret had always helped them. "But you're our family. How can you do this to us?" "It's exactly because I'm your family that I'm doing this. I believe you can handle it. You need to learn how to take responsibility." After those conversations, tension filled the air. Their home turned into a place of irritation and blame. Daniel and Rachel, so used to a comfortable life thanks to Margaret, suddenly faced a harsh reality. They didn't know how to save, how to plan a budget, how to deal with financial struggles. Daniel tried to talk to his mother in person. He came over to her house, hoping to convince her, to play on her sympathy, to make her feel guilty. But Margaret kept her distance. She listened to him calmly, without interrupting, but stayed firm. "The money faucet is closed, Daniel. Forget about it." Daniel left empty-handed, feeling betrayed and abandoned. He couldn't understand why his mother had suddenly changed her attitude towards them. He was used to her care, her financial support, and he couldn't imagine how they were supposed to live now. The family started living on Daniel's salary alone. It was hard. They had to give up a lot: expensive groceries, entertainment, new clothes. Every purchase now had to be carefully thought through. Daniel and Rachel were surprised to discover they could live without so many things they used to think were necessary. Daniel, buried in his project, tried to find investors and land profitable contracts. But so far, nothing worked out. Rachel, staying home with their son, felt helpless and lost. She knew she needed to find a job too, but the thought of leaving little Alexander with a nanny or in daycare upset her deeply. Evenings grew long and gloomy. Daniel and Rachel argued often, blaming each other for their situation. Daniel accused Rachel of pushing Margaret away, of being ungrateful and selfish. Rachel, in return, blamed Daniel for not being able to earn enough, for relying too much on his mother. For the first time in a long while, they truly faced financial reality. They realized money doesn't grow on trees, that you have to work hard for it, and that it should be valued and saved. They understood they had been living in an illusion, where their problems were solved by a loving mother and grandmother. A month flew by, days passing like a blur filled with anxiety and short, dry phone calls with her son. Margaret tried to stay strong, but her heart ached with worry for Daniel, Rachel, and of course, Alexander. She knew they were struggling, but she believed this was the only way they would learn to appreciate what they had and take responsibility for their lives. One evening, there was a knock at the door. Margaret looked through the peephole in surprise. Daniel was standing there. He looked exhausted and worn out, nothing like the son she used to know. He carried a heavy look of tiredness and realization. She opened the door without saying a word. Daniel stepped inside the hallway, his head hanging low. He couldn't bring himself to meet her eyes. Silence filled the apartment. "Mom," he began quietly, his voice trembling. "I came to say I'm sorry." Margaret stayed silent, letting him speak. She could see how hard it was for him, how the words didn't come easily. "I didn't understand," Daniel continued, lifting his tear-filled eyes to her. "I didn't understand how hard it's been for you all these years. I thought that's just how it was, that you'd always be there to help. I was blind." He stopped, breathing heavily. Margaret stepped closer and hugged him. He buried his face in her shoulder, and she felt him shaking. "I know, my son," she whispered, stroking his back. "I know." "Mom, forgive me," he said through his tears. "Forgive me for everything. I've been selfish. I only thought about myself. I never appreciated what you did for us." Margaret pulled back and looked him in the eyes. "I forgive you, Daniel," she said. "But you need to understand that things have changed. I won't be paying for you anymore. You need to learn how to live on your own." Daniel nodded, wiping his tears with the back of his hand. "I understand, Mom," he said. "I get it. I'm not asking you to give us money again. I just wanted you to know that I realize now how wrong I was." "I'm glad to hear that," Margaret replied. "I've always loved you, and I always will. But I can't let you keep living off me. It's not good for you." "I know, Mom," he repeated. "I know. Rachel and I, this month has been really hard. They cut off our internet. We almost lost electricity. We're behind on the kindergarten payments. I got a second job. Rachel's working part-time in the evenings. It's hard, but we're managing." Margaret listened, and her heart filled with pride. She saw he was changing, becoming more responsible and mature. "I'm glad you're managing," she said. "That's what matters. You need to learn to solve your problems yourselves. That will make you stronger." Daniel nodded. "Mom, can I bring Alexander over this weekend?" he asked. "He really misses you." Margaret smiled. "Of course, sweetheart," she said. "I'd love to see him." Daniel stayed for about an hour. They talked about many things: his work, Rachel, Alexander. Margaret could see that he was truly sorry for his mistakes and ready to change. She felt their relationship was starting to heal, but now on a different foundation, one of mutual respect and understanding. Another week passed. Margaret kept up with her usual routines, working at the hospital, shopping, reading books. One evening, her phone rang. Rachel's name appeared on the screen. Margaret hesitated a moment before answering. "Hello," she said. "Hi, Margaret," came Rachel's quiet voice. "It's Rachel." "Hello, Rachel," Margaret replied. "Margaret, I wanted to apologize," Rachel said. "For everything. I realize now that I was wrong. You've always helped us, and I never appreciated it. I thought that's just how it was supposed to be, that you owed us that help. I was so foolish." Margaret stayed silent, listening to her. "I'm so ashamed," Rachel continued. "I know I hurt you. I want you to know that I truly regret it." "I know, Rachel," Margaret replied. "I can see that you've changed." "Margaret, thank you for everything you've done for us," Rachel said. "I understand you won't be helping us financially anymore, and I'm not asking you to. I just wanted you to know that I appreciate all your help, and I'm so grateful to you." "I'm glad to hear that, Rachel," Margaret replied. "I always just wanted you to be happy." "We will be happy, Margaret," Rachel said. "We're going to work hard, we're going to try our best, we'll live on our own, and we'll always remember you and everything you've done for us." "I believe in you, Rachel," Margaret said. "I know you'll make it." They talked a bit longer. About Alexander, about their plans for the future. Margaret felt that the tension and distance between them were gone. She could tell that Rachel truly regretted her mistakes and was ready to build their relationship on a new foundation. After that conversation, Margaret felt relieved. She realized it had all been worth it, her sacrifices and efforts hadn't been in vain. She had helped her loved ones become stronger and more independent. She had taught them to appreciate what they had and to take responsibility for their lives. Soon, Daniel and Rachel started visiting Margaret more often. They brought Alexander over, shared their successes and struggles, and asked for her advice. Margaret loved spending time with her grandson and helping them however she could, not with money anymore, but with guidance and support. She saw Daniel and Rachel growing and maturing, their relationship becoming stronger and more loving. She saw that they had learned to value each other and stand together through hard times. She saw that they had become a real family. Margaret sat in her chair, looking out the window and smiling. She felt happy. She knew she had done the right thing. She had helped her loved ones find their way in life and become happy. And that was what mattered most. The financial help never resumed. But that didn't matter anymore. Between them now was a bond built on understanding, respect, and love. A bond far stronger than money.